They said his name drifted over the waves long before his ships appeared on the horizon. A whisper carried by cold winds, a warning carved into the memories of warriors from distant kingdoms. To some, he was a savage force of nature. To others, a ghost who sailed between worlds. But all agreed on one thing. The Viking warlord, feared even beyond the northern seas, was not merely a man, he was a storm given flesh. Long before his legend spread, terrified traders spoke of a fleet that moved with unnatural silence, gliding through fog as if guided by unseen spirits. Villages swore that the attack came before the lookout, even cried alarm. Kings increased taxes only to hire more guards. Priests prayed to unfamiliar gods, begging protection from the iron tide said to be led by a chieftain whose fury knew no borders. What made him different, what set him apart, even in an age defined by blood and ambition, was that his power came not only from the axe he carried, but from something darker, an instinct for war that few could understand and none could predict. But what almost no one knew was that behind the terror, behind the victories carved across coasts and kingdoms, lay a secret that would shape his fate, a truth buried beneath the roar of battle, waiting to rise when he finally stepped too far from the world that had created him. And as each conquest pulled him farther from home, the line between triumph and downfall grew thinner than the edge of his blade. Before we continue unfolding this remarkable tale, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. It shows you want more journeys like this into the past, and it helps this story reach even more curious minds across the world. Now, let's return to the cold winds of the north. The world that shaped this warlord was not yet the unified Scandinavia we imagine today. It was a mosaic of rival jarls, rising kings, and ambitious clans, all fighting for land, cattle, honor, or survival. The North Sea served as both barrier and gateway, connecting the Norse to the British Isles, the Frankish kingdoms, and the distant lands at the edge of the Baltic. Merchant ships disappeared as often to storms as to raiders, and every coastline knew the fear of sails striped with red or black emerging from the mist. It was a time when small decisions could spark wars that lasted generations. A time when alliances shifted with each passing winter, and a warlord with the right mix of cruelty and cunning could reshape entire regions. The stage was set for someone who would not simply follow the old ways, but weaponize them. Someone who understood that the sea did not belong to the strongest, but to the bravest and the most relentless. His name, according to the sagas, was Hrólf Bjornsson. Though in distant lands, he earned titles instead of introductions. The Frankish monks called him the Wolf from the Waves. In the Anglo-Saxon chronicles, he was the northern tyrant. Among his own men, he was simply Hrólf the Far-Sailed, the man who pushed beyond every map known to the Norse. He was not born to a large clan or a powerful chief. His father died in a feud when Hrólf was barely 12, leaving the boy with nothing but his mother's warnings and a hunger too large for a single village. Out there, she once told him, as they stood on a cliff battered by the storm, "The world does not forgive the weak." Hrólf did not forget that. The night she died, he left the village behind, walking toward a future shaped by steel and tide. His rise began in a longhouse flooded with the smell of ale, sweat, and ambition. He challenged a jarl, twice his age, in front of every warrior present. When the duel ended, the older man lay dead at his feet. The warriors around him expected fear or relief in the young man's eyes. Instead, they saw something far more dangerously calm certainty. As though Hrólf had always known, victory was inevitable. From that moment, he was followed. As years passed, Hrólf forged alliances through both diplomacy and violence. He led expeditions deeper into foreign territories than any Viking before him, returning each time with treasure, captives, and stories that made even seasoned raiders hesitate. Yet every triumph carried a shadow. Each kingdom he struck began preparing for him specifically. His enemies were no longer unprepared villagers, but trained armies, studying his every tactic. Hrólf had become too famous to ignore. What he did not know was that rumors of a single warlord capable of terrifying entire coasts had reached the ears of a powerful Frankish count. And this man, unlike most nobles of the time, was not afraid. He was patient, The trap came in the form of an open coastline and a village that looked abandoned, the perfect target. Hrólf's fleet approached under gray skies, the oars cutting through the water with practiced rhythm. He stood at the prow, cloak whipping in the wind, sensing something unusual in the air, but unable to name it. Warriors tightened their grips on shields. A few asked, quietly, if the gods were silent today. He ignored the whispers. As they beached the ships, the silence felt too heavy. No dogs barked, no smoke rose from hearths. Even the gulls had vanished. Hrólf raised one hand, ordering caution, but the moment he stepped forward, the hills erupted with Frankish cavalry. More soldiers poured from the tree line, shields locked in formation, crossbows aimed with cold precision. The first volley struck before the Vikings could form a shield wall. Bolts tore through fur cloaks and leather armor. Men fell, screaming into the sand. Hrólf roared for his warriors to regroup, dragging a wounded man out of the line of fire. Every instinct screamed that this was no ordinary counterattack. It was a plan crafted months in advance by someone who understood him far too well. He drew his axe and charged. The world narrowed into flashes of steel, the thundering hooves of war horses, the clash of shields breaking under cavalry weight. Hrólf cut through the first rider with a single blow, then another, refusing to retreat even as his men fell on all sides. But the Frankish forces were relentless, pushing him toward the cliffs behind the village. His ships were no longer a path to safety, they were already burning. For the first time in years, he realized he had miscalculated. The trap had sprung shut, and the wolves of the north had become prey. Some chronicles say he died fighting to his last breath, surrounded by enemies who feared getting close enough to kill him. Others claim he was captured and executed as a warning to future raiders. A few sagas whisper that he escaped, wounded and alone, vanishing into the forests of a foreign land, never to be seen again. But what happened after that bloody day mattered less than the legacy he left behind. In the months that followed, entire coastlines reported fewer raids, not because the Vikings lacked strength, but because even they realized what awaited those who pushed too far. Frankish rulers celebrated their victory, but they also strengthened their defenses, fearing that someone like Hrólf would one day rise again. And among the Norse, sailors spoke his name with both pride and caution. He became a symbol of ambition unchained, of how far a single warlord could go before the world finally struck back. To this day, historians debate whether Hrólf truly existed or whether his deeds were a combination of several leaders woven into a single figure. But the fear he inspired is undeniable, recorded in chronicles from lands that rarely agreed on anything. And maybe that is the greatest legacy of all. A reminder that even the fiercest storms eventually meet the shore. If you enjoyed traveling through this story of power and consequences, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and tell us in the comments which warrior, empire, or forgotten legend you want to see next. The past is filled with voices waiting to be heard, and your support helps bring them back to life.